My name is Ashley Maxwell, and I'm here to present my action research project on infusion of relevant choice and project-based learning in social studies. The purpose of my action research project was to increase engagement in social studies learning by replacing traditional teacher-centered instructional approaches with student-centered ones. By this, I mean instead of students learning through teacher lectures and reading a textbook and taking a paper and pencil test, I wanted students to be the creator of their knowledge and be able to present that learning. The rationale behind this is that lectures and textbooks do not activate students' prior knowledge and promote a unidimensional lens of history, and further that traditional modes of assessment capture learning in a one-size-fits-all model. In order to examine my own teaching in relation to student-centered rather than traditional instructional approaches, I used the following research question. Does infusion of relevant choice in project-based learning in content delivery and assessment increase engagement in social studies learning? This was done through both qualitative and quantitative methods. First and foremost, I chose a specific engagement survey that was shown to be effective to measure engagement levels of students by Skinner, Kinderman, and Fuhrer in 2009. I also felt that this was a valid and reliable choice because these same researchers had done many studies on student engagement, lending to their credibility. When I dove deeper into literature on engagement, a common trend was that the key to student engagement was through student autonomy and relevancy, meaning students had some sort of control over what they learned and felt it was relevant to their own lives, which was connected to more positive emotions towards learning. This opened up other avenues of literature that showed providing choice and active learning can achieve this by allowing students to be active in their learning environments rather than passive. By the end of my literature review, I found that the United States lacked studies on project-based learning and choice, and further that there was a gap in this literature specifically for the general education classrooms and social studies education. The study took place in 3 6th grade social studies classrooms in Corvallis, Oregon. In order to measure engagement quantitatively, students took the engagement survey during the control stage that compromised the traditional lecture-led instructional approaches. And I then analyzed results to identify areas of concern to focus on after the experimental phase. Students also took a multiple intelligence quiz in order to identify their top 3 strongest intelligences. After the experimental phase, in which the project-based choice menu was implemented, the students took the engagement survey once again, and I compared these results with the control stage, focusing on identified problem areas as well as any other increases in engagement shown. I also conducted a classroom discussion on students' feelings about the choice menu, as well as a written reflection once projects were finished. Lastly, I also recorded my own observations of students' emotional and behavioral engagement. Based on my literature review, I implemented a project-based choice menu that was aligned with Howard Gardners Multiple Intelligences. I chose to use multiple intelligences in order to create relevancy, choice to create autonomy, and projects to make the learning environment active. The unit was on climate, in which students were assigned a climate region and worked in group sizes of 3 to 4 of their choosing. Groups then chose any project on the menu and then presented their project to the class. The assignment criteria was that students included the location of climate, features of the climate including annual precipitation and seasons, 5 plants, 5 animals, and 5 survival items. Students were encouraged but not required to use their multiple intelligence scores to guide their choice of the type of project they chose. I did this in order to increase the amount of autonomy students felt. Surveys that were taken, which were behavioral engagement, behavioral disaffection, emotional engagement, and emotional disaffection, disaffection being the opposite of engagement, meaning disengagement. For overall, the results showed that students were listening and paying attention more. They were focused and put forth more effort. They showed more interest in classwork, and they also felt that class was fun. For disaffection surveys, results also showed that students had decreased levels of boredom and anxiety and other negative emotions like anger and frustration. And specifically for my students, feeling angry or frustrated when they were stuck on a problem. There were some negative results for the emotional engagement portion of the survey, in which there were some decreases shown, but I found that these were directly, and I mean exactly, directly countered by the emotional disaffection surveys, where questions were very similar to each other. And I'll discuss this more later. Some of my favorite memories from doing my action research project is that when students came to class, they were so excited to get to class. They were like, Miss Maxwell, can we start? I know the bell hasn't rang, but can we start? It was amazing. I was really proud of myself and what I did. So there was increased enthusiasm and excitement to start and finish work. I will say that there was a little bit of problems working within a group for some groups because they were able to pick their own groups. So some friends kind of they disagreed on some things, but eventually they were able to work it out. Most importantly, the kids who got in trouble a lot, they were not off task. It was like something happened to these kids, and they no longer didn't care about school. They were totally into it. They were invested. And overall, for all the groups, there was ownership and drive to complete this project. And most importantly is amazing projects that would not have happened if I would have hindered their creativity. And what I mean by this is I just said, all right, you are going to make a presentation of your choice on climate. Here are the things that you need to put in your presentation. Some of the things were, where's the climate located? Annual precipitation. What's the weather like? What plants and animals live there? Things like that. And then they were able to describe and choose the way that they presented to the class. So if I would have told them to just make a PowerPoint or write a paper about it, I wouldn't have gotten color-coded maps. I wouldn't have got skits. I wouldn't have got funny videos that were super informational. I wouldn't have got rap songs. It was amazing. What I found most interesting about student reflections is that students indicated that their favorite and the presentations that they learned the most from were from the ones that balanced an amount of silliness and factual information. So students actually indicated that they learned the most from skits, and I will say the ones that the students on their own chose to reflect on were pretty silly. But they also had a lot of information and were so creative in the way that they put that information into their project and got it out to the class. What else was awesome was that students indicated that the one student who did a rap song that was their favorite and they felt they learned a lot from. And I will tell you that this kid was in so much trouble all the time. So that was such a success for me. And for the student, and for all the students, because that student was able to be like, hey, I did something, and students learned from me. So what this taught me was that students can learn from each other, and that they can enjoy learning while they're doing it. So that was the most amazing part of that. So instead of learning by a lecture, me shoving information down into their little brains, they actually learned from each other. And it was a success. And they indicated that they had fun while they learned, and that they actually learned a lot. So that was a big success. Overall, there were many promising results that confirm my research question: does infusion of relevant choice in project-based learning and content delivery and assessment increase engagement in social studies learning? I feel confident to say this because the infusion of my project-based choice menu did increase engagement in my classroom by first allowing students to feel relevancy by the ability to choose the way that they presented, either in line or not with their multiple intelligence. I say with or without because students were able to use their dominant multiple intelligences to choose their project or just choose one they thought sounded awesome. My results aligned with Jones 2013, who found that when choice is available, learning is motivated by interest, developing into enthusiasm and passion. Also, because students were able to choose their own groups, which resulted in groups of multiple intelligences, my study confirms Osdiner and Oscoban 2004, who found that students grouped in multiple intelligences in a project-based learning environment showed more positive achievement gains. In this sense, content was delivered to students through a student-centered approach. They researched their assigned topic themselves and learned about other topics by watching other groups present rather than learning through a lecture. Secondly, they were assessed on the group presentation of their choice. Because student enthusiasm and engagement levels were so high when they created their group projects, I also feel confident to say that my study confirms Reig 2007, who found that when students feel they are part of assessments, they show more ownership in their learning. Taken from the results of the engagement surveys, as well as my observations, student reflections, and the confirmations that my study has from earlier research findings, I feel that my data supports that project-based learning and choice menus can increase engagement in social studies learning. Because I found this to be true, I also think it should be used in other general education classroom settings. So I would also like to discuss that I found some decreases in emotional engagement. This was interesting because, for instance, the question, "Class is fun for me?" showed a decrease in engagement. But for the disaffection survey, the opposite of engagement, the question, "Class is not fun for me," actually showed an increase in engagement. And this was a common theme, that some of the decreases shown were directly countered in the disaffection surveys, and not only were they directly countered, they were countered more, meaning that there was shown to be more engagement than disengagement in any of the decreases shown. So taken from those larger increases seen, my own observations of student enthusiasm and engagement levels, as well as student reflections, I will say that my study and the way I implemented the choice menu that had project-based assignments definitely increased emotional engagement. Also, I will say that in the beginning of the project, I was initially very nervous about my ability to manage my classroom effectively, and it actually turned out that I was a little bored because students were so engaged and absorbed in their projects and their group work. So my study confirms what's been found earlier, that choice can minimize disruptive behaviors and increase on-task behaviors. That was found in Dunlap et al. 1994 and Powell and Nelson 1997. So, further extending upon that research, I conclude that my study indicates that choice combined with project-based assignments or assessments can be used to engage students with a history of disaffected or problematic classroom behavior. Overall, my study confirms that choice, relevancy, project-based, and student-centered approaches can increase engagement of social studies learning.